I want to expose ALEC. They've been flying underneath the radar screen. ALEC is a lobbying group that's bought and paid for by corporations throughout America to promote their agenda.
ALEC is an acronym for the American Legislative Exchange Council. If working people could identify a single political enemy, it would be ALEC. They do not like working people at all. Their laws are geared and written for big corporations to put profits in their coffers and don't have any benefit whatsoever for working people.
The American Legislative Exchange Council is basically an organization that's funded by corporate interest. And our concern with that is that they're spending their time basically drafting what they call model legislation. And they're taking that model legislation and basically distributing it to legislators all over the country. And it's being introduced into state houses everywhere. And basically they're trying to pass laws that will benefit corporate America.
We want the public to know what kind of bad legislation is being influenced by these corporations.
ALEC has come about in such a cynical way. It took a terrible economic crisis, and they took this terrible moment in our great country and they stewed that like a toxic soup where they could unleash their assaults and attack on workers, our unions, and the middle class.
ALEC simply is against us. They are giving our legislators legislation that tries to shift power to corporate America and harms the working class, harms our firefighters. And it's that simple.
They push right to work, they push workers' compensation reductions, collective bargaining elimination, pension elimination. They run the whole gamut of legislation that is for the employers and not for the employees.
It's all corporate driven. It's nothing to help the working man and woman. They look at a worker as a disposable commodity. You give them your whole life, you give them your youth, you give them your health for 30 years, and they want to just dispose of you like an old piece of trash.
The bill that ALEC was helping run through the Oklahoma legislature would completely change our ability to collectively bargain or negotiate with our employers, and it would change over 4 decades of labor law in Oklahoma.
We think it's very critical that we send a message to ALEC and those that support ALEC that we're not happy with this type of circumvention of what we call an American democracy. They're going basically behind closed doors and drafting legislation without public scrutiny and without public review and without input from the citizens. I think it's critical to raise visibility on that issue. People need to know that this type of activity is occurring around the country as they move from state to state and try to broaden their influence, and it needs to stop.
ALEC is one of the major players, and the funders of ALEC are some of our major enemies. We have to stand up and let our voices be heard, or the middle class is going to go away in this country, and we don't want that.
We need to make sure that the American people are aware of it, and if they'll stand with us, we'd love to have their support to try to put an end to this.
ALEC's operating in every nook and cranny they can operate in, and sometimes they're doing it under the cover of dark, and sometimes they get out in the open, and we're trying to make sure it's out in the open.
They're doing it behind closed doors. They're trying to get legislation passed. They're not letting public input and debate on any of this legislation. We're not going to let them do this without putting up one hell of a fight and letting them hear what we got to say about it.